Do your wide receivers have tough matchups this week? Here's a few of them. Let's talk about who we're going to start and sit for the wide receiver position. What is going on, everybody? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there, and now we're talking about wide receivers. There's some guys with some easy matchups, and there's some guys with some pretty tough matchups. And which ones can we trust and which ones can't we this week? And we're going to talk about it here in a second. I'm doing the same breakdown as I did for the running backs. I got all the games listed out, and I'm going to give you at least 1 to 2 wide receivers per team, whether you should start them or sit them, and just kind of give you a quick description as to why. Before I get into this list, though, make sure you guys head over to RotoBaller, subscribe, hit the notification button there. Also, the Sunday shows have been rocking. They've been answering all kinds of start-sit questions, lineup advice, last-minute weather changes, injuries. We cover it all. You don't want to miss it out. Go over there, check it out, hit the subscribe button right after this video is over. And now, let's talk about some wide receivers here for Week 3. First game we're going to be talking about is going to be the Jets at the Browns there on Thursday night. And for the Jets, I want to talk about Quincy Enunwa for a second. He's somebody who's borderline getting to the point where he's a must-start flex play week in and week out, especially in PPR leagues. Not very many times are you going to find a wide receiver that gets close to double-digit targets every week. He's the favorite target of Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold's only going to get better the more time he spends under center. Quincy Enunwa is going up against a improved Cleveland Browns defense. They've looked pretty good, but the number ones have also been able to take advantage of Cleveland. Michael Thomas last week. Now, obviously, Quincy Enunwa is not Michael Thomas, but he had a huge week last week against the Browns, and Quincy Enunwa is going to get the opportunity. He's going to get the targets and could have a very, very nice day. Solid flex play all day long. Terrell Pryor seems to have been the number 2 there now. Robbie Anderson is droppable at this point. If you have him, find somebody different. Go out there, check out the waiver wire show. Maybe one of these guys is still available. But for right now, for this week, Thursday night, Quincy Enunwa is going to be the only one that I start for the New York Jets. All right, now on the Cleveland Browns side of the football, we got Jarvis Landry, who we'll talk about. Now, obviously, if you have Jarvis Landry, he's more than likely somebody that you're probably going to have to start, and I'm fine with that. He's somebody who's going to see close to 10 to 15 targets a week, which is something you just can't replace in fantasy football. You need the targets to score the points. He's a definite must-start for me this week. They are going up against the New York Jets, and the Jets are the 28th ranked team against the pass. So they are a little bit stingy, but Jarvis gets the volume in order to make up the difference for that. All he needs is a few catches, especially in PPR leagues. And now there's really no huge red zone threat. Maybe outside of David Njoku, Jarvis Landry could get a slight uptick in touchdowns and be a solid play for you week in and week out. They do have the young kids, Antonio Callaway and Rashard Higgins. They trust these guys. It's part of the reason they got rid of Josh Gordon. Neither one of them are ready yet, though, to be thrown into your starting lineup. If you did snag one of them off the waiver wire, stash them on the bench, see which one produces the wide receiver 2 numbers, and we'll go on from there. But for this week, Jarvis Landry is the only wide receiver I'm starting for the Browns. Let's move on to the Saints at the Falcons. We'll start off here with the Saints and Michael Thomas. If you have Michael Thomas, you are starting Michael Thomas. I don't care who else you have and what other matchups you have. I don't care who Michael Thomas plays. The dude is going absolutely crazy so far this year. He's already got 28 catches for 269 yards. And that's only through 2 weeks. He's the clear top receiving option for a Drew Brees-led offense, and I'm not needing to convince you to start Michael Thomas. As for Ted Ginn as the other wide receiver there, he's going to be boom or bust. He is probably next on the list as far as target share goes for Drew Brees, somebody who he does have chemistry with. In this game, do I expect a whole lot from Ted Ginn? Probably not. I'm looking in the area probably about 4 catches, 50 yards. Maybe if you're really struggling for a flex play, you can throw him in there at your flex. Hope for the touchdown, but outside of that, nobody else on New Orleans who I'm going to play as a wide receiver this week. For the Falcons, you got Julio Jones. Obviously, another guy. I shouldn't have to talk you into starting Julio Jones. You're definitely going to. Calvin Ridley actually had a decent game there in week 2, and I'm getting a lot of questions about Calvin Ridley. I'm not ready to throw him in the starting lineup yet. He is somebody who should probably be owned in your league. It looks like they're starting to give him more and more opportunities, and he's somebody who could definitely capitalize on it with those opportunities. Stash him on your bench here for a few weeks. Let's see if this trend continues before we automatically just trust him and throw him in there in your starting lineup. But yeah, that's all I'm doing for Atlanta this week. Now on to the Packers at the Redskins there in Washington, talking about the Packers. Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams, 2 guys that I will be starting this week. Cobb more of a flex. Adams more as a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. As long as Aaron Rodgers is playing football, I'm starting his top receiving options. They are somewhat limited and somewhat risky this week. Washington is the #1 ranked pass defense in the NFL, giving up less than 250 yards and 13.5 points per game. But this is Aaron Rodgers we're talking about. You start his top receiving weapons as long as he's playing. For Washington, though, it's a little bit, more confusing. I mean, you got Crowder, Doxson, and Richardson. And I've had Crowder as a start here the past couple weeks just because of his PPR upside. But it seems as though they're just spreading it out so equally that none of them really have huge value. They're all kind of eating into each other's production. As of right now, I'm sitting all three of these guys until we can get a clear-cut #1 in that offense. It's just too risky week to week. Moving on to the Colts at the Eagles. They're in Philadelphia. On the Colts side of the football, you got T.Y. Hilton and Ryan Grant. Now, I'm going to start both of these guys this week. Ryan Grant, more of a deeper league flex play at best, but I do like the potential upside that he has this week. T.Y. Hilton, I need to temper expectations slightly. They will be in Philadelphia on the road against a team who has not looked that great coming off a Super Bowl victory. They do get Carson Wentz back, and I expect that place to be absolutely rocking on an emotional high. If they can weather the storm in the first quarter and a half in Philadelphia, he's going to have a decent game. But if they come out there, struggle to begin with, and they just can't recover, Philadelphia could end up running away with this game early, and that could lead to some bust potential there for T.Y. Hilton. He's not a sit. It's just something we need to watch and temper expectations with, still have him as a start. On the Philadelphia side of the football, we got Nelson Agholor. I mean, he literally showed up to the team meetings this week, sat down in his chair and went. He was the only one in the team meeting probably because there's like nobody left in Philadelphia to throw the ball to. Everybody's hurt. Nobody's there. Yeah, it's a mess. And Nelson Agholor is somebody who's produced great here so far to start the season. He hadn't had the big yardage games there, especially in week 1, but he's getting the ball a lot because there's no other options. Now Carson Wentz comes back, who's an upgrade over Nick Foles. Now Nelson Agholor wasn't the top target of Carson Wentz last year, but Alshon Jeffrey's not playing. Zach Ertz should get an uptick in targets, but I'm definitely starting Nelson Agholor at a minimum of a flex play. He should see the volume, see the targets. He may not have a huge game numbers-wise, like yardage-wise, but he does have a high touchdown upside this week in a game where they may have to end up throwing and go back and forth with the Indianapolis Colts and Andrew Luck. I like Nelson Agholor, and I'm starting them this week. Bills at Vikings next, and I feel like I say it every single week. It's going to get ugly for Buffalo, and it's going to get ugly quick. And it's just not getting any easier for him with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, you got Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen there for the Vikings, and I'm starting both of them. In fact, I'm starting both of them every single week for the rest of the year, just so you guys know, regardless of matchup. I tried to overanalyze a little bit last week, figure out who would get the majority of the targets based off the game script, and I went with Thielen. Well, it's apparent that Diggs and Thielen are able to coexist and both produce high numbers. Therefore, they both start on a weekly basis, especially being led by Kirk Cousins, who is throwing the ball more this year than a lot of people had anticipated. As far as the Buffalo Bills go, I don't want anything to do with the Buffalo Bills. If you have a Buffalo Bill player on your roster, I am trading, cutting, doing whatever I have to do to get them off my screen. I don't even want them affecting or infecting, I guess I could say at this point, my fantasy roster with anything that's going on in Buffalo. I mean, even the Water Boys are struggling in Buffalo, and I want nothing to do with it. I'm sitting all Bills players. Raiders at Dolphins are next, and we'll talk about Amari Cooper and Jordy Nelson. Now, Jordy Nelson is an obvious sit for me. He's almost borderline droppable at this point. The Raiders just aren't spending enough time in the red zone to make him relevant week in and week out. Amari Cooper is somebody who I haven't been on the bandwagon for in a long time. He had a great week too, and I acknowledge that. But there's always that possibility of the bust of Amari Cooper and that disappearing act that he has pulled so many times. I'm going to start Amari Cooper this week. They're going to have to throw the ball. However, if you have the opportunity, if you have the availability and depth on your bench, I'm throwing Amari Cooper in my flex spot just to try to help myself prepare just in case there is one of those bust games. I'm not relying on him as my wide receiver too. Now, obviously, if you have no other bench depth at the wide receiver position and it's just another crapshoot, leave Amari Cooper in there. Close your eyes, cross your fingers, say a prayer to the fantasy gods that he has back-to-back good weeks, and that's all you can do. On to the Miami Dolphins now, and really the only guy we're going to talk about is Kenny Stills. His upside is huge, but you kind of saw just the difference between week 1 and 2. He's not overly consistent. He has that huge ceiling, but a really low floor also. But they're going up against the Oakland Raiders defense, who gives up 375 yards a game through the air alone. And Kenny Stills will more than likely be the top option for Ryan Tannehill. They're going to have to throw the ball this week against Oakland. And I'm starting Kenny Stills this week, hopefully as a flex play with huge wide receiver 2 upside. Outside of that, though, there's nobody in Miami that I'm even remotely touching or really even want on my roster unless I'm in a deeper league. Broncos at Ravens is next, and we'll start off with Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. Now, Demaryius Thomas did something last week that I don't know if I have ever seen before in a football game. He had 5 catches. Sounds decent. Dude had 18 yards. How do you get 18 yards on 5 catches? That's like a 1-yard route. Who runs 5 1-yard routes and then just falls forward? I don't get it. I don't understand it. And it's kind of depressing for Demaryius Thomas owners. He's borderline almost touchdown dependent right now. And that's not the type of guy you want to rely on for your wide receiver 2 in most cases. Now, Emmanuel Sanders, on the other hand, is somebody who Keenum looks for all the time. He's this year's Case Keenum's last year's Adam Thielen. If that makes any sense to you, I don't know, but I think you get what I'm talking about. He's the top target of Case Keenum in an offense that is favoring the pass heavily right now. Baltimore is one of the top pass defenses in football, even though it didn't look like it in the first half of last week's game when Andy Dalton decided to go absolutely crazy to A.J. Green. It's possible that could happen again. The game's in Baltimore. I'm starting Emmanuel Sanders, but for right now, I'm going to sit Demaryius Thomas until he can get a little bit more involved in this passing game, but I hate to do it. On the Baltimore side of the ball, we actually have a couple options to talk about for the first time in years. You got Michael Crabtree, John Brown, and Slick Willie Snead. But which one do you choose? Do you choose any of them? Willie Snead, to me, is somebody who's too inconsistent at this point. He's not even rosterable, in my opinion. John Brown is a popular pickup this week because of the game that he had last week, and I have no issues with John Brown. He seems to be, Joe Flacco's top down-the-field threat. Crabtree, on the other hand, the hashtag remains. I'm still keeping it. I'm not giving up on it week 3. I'm sticking with the hashtag of never Crabtree. I want nothing to do with crabs. I don't care what kind they are. I'm avoiding him altogether. He's too much of a possession receiver with limited upside on an offense that doesn't get in the red zone a whole lot. And yeah, it's just not there for me for Crabtree. John Brown is intriguing. He is a start for me as a flex play only. But outside of that, I'm sitting Crabtree and sitting Snead. Bengals and Panthers up next, and we'll call this one the Sunday afternoon cat fight. We're going to start off on the Bengals side of the football. We'll talk about A.J. Green and Tyler Boyd. Now, before last week, nobody wanted to talk about Tyler Boyd. Nobody even really cared that he played football. And then he had a pretty decent week there in week 2, and now all of a sudden he's a thing. He is the clear number 2 in an Andy Dalton offense there in Cincinnati, and he's actually producing decent numbers. Now, he's not going to go out and put huge A.J. Green-style numbers up, but if you're in a PPR league, he's somebody who can get you 5 to 7 receptions, somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 yards a week, and has some slight touchdown upside. He's definitely worth an add. I just don't think I would start him yet and count on him. If you're in a deeper league, though, a flex play of Tyler Boyd is not a bad idea. For A.J. Green, I'm a little worried about A.J. Green this week. I'm not sitting him. He's still going to be a must-start every single week. But the Carolina Panthers defense is a little bit underrated in the secondary. I mean, they just held Julio Jones to a fairly low game. I mean, he only ended up with 5 yards for 64 catches. And that's for Julio Jones. Now, does that mean that they're going to go out there and shut out A.J. Green? Probably not. I'm just not expecting the big 3-touchdown game, but you're starting A.J. Green if you have him. On the Carolina side of the football, you got Devin Funchess, really one of the only receivers they have of name, not named Christian McCaffrey, who's a running back. But I'm not starting Devin Funchess. I have no faith in Devin Funchess, and if you have Devin Funchess on your team, I highly recommend you get said Devin Funchess off your team. He's just not somebody you can rely on week to week. Cam Newton is not the most accurate quarterback, and it seems to be that anybody outside of Christian McCaffrey is just hit or miss in that offense. I'm sitting Devin Funchess and keeping the hashtag of never Funchess. Battle of the heavyweights. Now you have the Giants at the Texans, and we'll start off with the Giants side of the football and Odell Beckham and Sterling Shepard. Now, last week in the game, it did not look pretty for the Giants at all. Eli was running for his life. He looked terrified at times. At one point, they picked him up off the ground, and he looked like he had just his pants. That's not good for the New York Giants or Odell Beckham. However, better days are to come, and you cannot sit Odell Beckham. All he needs is a 5-yard slant, and he can take it to the house. It's not somebody you want to have on your bench at any point throughout the year. You're starting Odell Beckham. Sterling Shepard, on the other hand, is somebody who I'm moving as a sit. If you had him in your flex spot this past week, he absolutely killed you. and that offense as a whole is not one that you want to have too many pieces of. Right now, the only two people I'm starting in New York are Odell Beckham and Saquon Barkley. Outside of that, too inconsistent, and until they can keep it going, that's all I'm touching. Now, on the Texans side of the football, you got DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller. And Will Fuller's kind of the key to everything here. If he's there and can take some of the pressure off of DeAndre Hopkins, it just gives Watson more opportunities to spread the ball around and make both of these guys efficient. It's obvious that there's chemistry between Watson and Fuller. It seems like all they do is score touchdowns, and DeAndre Hopkins is the guy going to get the bulk of the targets. Also, another guy like Odell. You just can't sit DeAndre Hopkins. He's too talented, borderline matchup proof. His upside may be limited at times, but I'm starting both of these guys, Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins this week. Titans at Jags is next, and this is a quick one. For the Titans, I'm sitting all of them. I don't care who it is. You got Blaine Gabbert under center going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars defense at home, and Corey Davis just can't seem to make up his mind whether he wants to be on or off the injury report. I'm sitting everybody for Tennessee. On the Jaguar side of the football, we'll talk about Keelan Cole. He was somebody who was on the waiver wire show earlier in the week, and he's somebody who we've talked about here in the past. He can produce big numbers with low volume, and that's what you want in an offense that heavily favors the run. Keelan Cole has great upside this week, solid flex play, and I would start him there if need be. 49ers and Chiefs are next, so we'll be talking about Pierre Garçon and Marquise Goodwin, both of who I'm going to start this week. However, we need to monitor Marquise Goodwin. He's coming off that, they called it a deep thigh bruise. Well, that's a heck of a bruise because it's still not clear or not whether he plays this week. Make sure you're watching the practice reports. As long as he is playing without limitations, I'm starting Marquise Goodwin and Pierre Garçon. They're just going to have to throw the ball to keep pace with the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs are not exactly world beaters when it comes to stopping the pass. It could be another high-scoring game, and I don't want to miss out on it. As long as both these guys are healthy, good to go, no limitations, I'm starting both Pierre Garçon and Marquise Goodwin this week. On the Chiefs side of the ball, we'll talk about Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins, and I'm starting both of these guys also. If you saw the game last week where Patrick Mahomes was just going absolutely crazy, throwing the ball wherever he wanted, get used to it, because that's the type of offense they're going to be running in Kansas City here going forward. The issue is there's just so many weapons. It could be the Travis Kelce day. It could be the Sammy Watkins. It could be the Tyreek Hill. There's no guarantee that all three of them have a great week, but you can't afford to sit them at this point. Tyreek Hill is a solid wide receiver 2 for most lineups, and Sammy Watkins is somebody that you probably got a little bit later in the draft and can afford to put him at your flex. Now, obviously, if you have both of them, I'm not starting two people at the same time from the same team, but they are both starts for me this week. Battle of Los Angeles is next. You got the Chargers at the Rams, calling it the double homer because, yep, games in LA, they're both basically at home. It is what it is. Talking about Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, though. I'm going to start Keenan Allen. Now, I know it's a tough matchup. The Rams just don't give up any points, any yards. They don't give up anything on the Rams side of the ball, like at all. But Keenan Allen is going to get the volume. It's not somebody that goes out there and is going to get 3 or 4 targets, and he needs to rely on catching all of them to have a great day. He's going to get close to 10-plus targets, and he's somebody who I feel safe starting week in and week out. Mike Williams, on the other hand, I'm going to sit Mike Williams this week. He's looked great here early in the season, but there's multiple shutdown corners there on the Rams side of the ball, and I don't want to risk it with Mike Williams. He probably picked him up on waivers here towards the beginning of the season anyway, and it's not somebody that you are solely reliant upon. I'm resting him this week, sitting him on the bench, and wait until the Rams leave, and then I'll fire him back up. On the Rams side of the football, you got Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods, and I feel comfortable starting all 3 this week. Brandon Cooks more of a wide receiver 2, and the other 2 more of as a flex play. It's a high-powered offense there for the Rams. The Chargers don't exactly shut the pass down. They're allowing more than 320 yards a game through the air. Cooper Kupp has the higher touchdown upside. Woods is more of their big play, deep play threat. Doesn't get the volume that the others get, but does have the opportunity for a huge game. And Brandon Cooks looks like he's returning to all-pro form. Great offense there in Los Angeles for the Rams, and I'm starting all 3 of those guys this week. In what could be the worst offensive game of the week, you got the Cowboys at the Seahawks. This one could get ugly for both teams. It may be ugly to watch. It may not even be a game you want to watch. I mean, the Seahawks offense is struggling. Russell Wilson is running for his life. The pass rush of the Cowboys is very underrated and very impressive. And the Cowboys can't seem to get anything going on offense either. I'm going to sit everybody in this game from the wide receiver position with the exception of one guy. I'm going with the Beazles. He's a start as a flex play in PPR leagues only. Outside of that, I'm not touching anybody in this game. I got no Allen Hurns, no Michael Gallup, no Brandon Marshall, no Tyler Lockett, nobody. I'm not starting anybody. This game is going to be ugly and not even fun to watch. Bears at Cardinals is next, and we'll start off on the Bears side of the football with Allen Robinson, who really came on strong here in week 2. It's actually starting to look like him and Trubisky are getting on the same page, and that's great to see because before that, I was really worried about anybody in this offense really standing out. I'm going to start Allen Robinson this week. The Cardinals can't stop anybody. They can't score points. They can't do anything right in Arizona. I'm starting Allen Robinson and hoping that this chemistry can continue between him and Trubisky. I can see an easy 8 catches, 85 to 100 yards, and a touchdown for Allen Robinson this week. On the Cardinals side of the football, you got Larry Fitzgerald, who's banged up, and that's all you got from the wide receiver position. I'm not buying it yet. That Bears defense looks great. I'm going to sit Larry Fitzgerald this week until this offense can figure out what is going on in Arizona. In what could be the highest scoring game of the week, you got the Patriots at the Lions. Now, the Lions playing no defense. They have 11 guys out there, but they might as well have like 4 or 5. It doesn't really matter. They can't stop anybody anyway. On the New England side of the ball, you got Chris Hogan. You got a bunch of guys that are just kind of eh. You got Chris Hogan, Cordero Patterson, Philip Dorsett, the newly acquired Josh Gordon. And I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about Josh Gordon, and I'm not comfortable starting him yet. He's only been in town for a couple days. He may get a few plays, but I'm not expecting a whole lot of opportunity for him here in his first week. After that, it's a different story. This week, though, the only guy I'm going to start is going to be Chris Hogan. He seemed to have a bounce-back week in week 2 after a disappointing week 1. We already know he has the chemistry with Tom Brady, and they're going to be able to throw all over the Detroit Lions. I'll start Chris Hogan this week. As far as the Lions go, they're going to have to score to keep pace with the Patriots, and all 3 of their wide receivers are looking great. Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, and Kenny Galladay are all starts for me also. This is going to be a high-passing offense the remainder of the year. I know they wanted to get the run going in Detroit. It's just not working. The defense is not good enough for them to run the ball on the offensive side. They're going to have to continue to throw, and all 3 of those guys are great options in Detroit. I have no issue starting any of them. Kenny Galladay is more of a flex play. The other 2, solid wide receiver 2s. On to the Monday night game, and I'm sure we looked at this on the schedule when it came out, and we're like, who cares? It's the Steelers and the Bucs. Nobody really cares about the Bucs. Well, all of a sudden, the Bucs are really exciting to watch, and they're led by Mr. Chest Hair and Gold Chains himself. And this offense almost looks borderline elite from the passing side. They can't run for nothing in Tampa Bay, which is a reason they keep throwing the ball. So you have Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, and Chris Godwin. All 3 of them are going to be starts for me this week. Godwin is more of a deeper league option, though. 12 teams or larger, I'm fine with Godwin as a flex play. The other 2, though, D-Jax and Evans, solid starts for me because Pittsburgh can't stop anybody through the air, and the mixture of the offense of the Bucs and the defense of the Steelers could lead to some big points and some big plays. On the Steelers side of the football, we have no idea what's going on. Now Antonio Brown's not showing up to work on Monday, and there's just drama all over the place. Now, obviously, if AB shows up, he plays. That's just the way it is. And Juju has been arguably one of the best receivers, not only on his team, but in the NFL through 2 weeks. And if they're giving up a bunch of points to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're going to have to throw the ball to stay in the game. I expect good games all around for the wide receivers in this one. I'm starting both Juju and AB. All right, so there's a breakdown of each game here for the week and the wide receivers that I'm looking at in each one of them. Obviously, there is more, but I can't cover every single one of them. Really appreciate the support, though. We're making our push towards 20K. Can we get to 20K by week 4 or 5? Is that a goal we can set for ourselves? Really appreciate the support. Couldn't be here without you guys. Really appreciate it. Make sure you guys are liking, commenting, subscribing. We'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Thanks.